Okay, it's time to fix that nagging drip in your tub spout, in your shower head. Maybe it's a difficulty turning the handle, something like that, but you've got a 3-handle setup like this. Now, there's a lot of similarities between how they operate, but we're going to show you a most common, a little more modern type. For some of the older kinds, you might find you need a socket set like this. This is not expensive. I think this was $15. But the vast majority of the uses for these sockets is for shower stems like this, because once you pull this beauty ring cover off, some of the older ones, you have to get back into the wall to get the actual arm out so you can get to it and service it. Most of those use a round black plastic washer or rubber washer. They're extremely easy to service as well, as long as you've got these. We're going to do a cartridge style. It's a little more modern, really common, and pretty much very similar design from brand to brand as well. So, first thing we're going to do is remove the cap so that we can get to the screw for the handle. Very gently. We're going to use a Phillips screwdriver to remove the handle. Now, before I go any further, make sure you turn the water off to the house. Either maybe there's a cutoff valve near your water heater that's for the whole house, or maybe you have to go all the way out to the street or to your water meter box to turn it off with the street key. But get that water turned off, because as soon as I loosen this, water's going to go crazy if it's not off. And once the water is turned off, I'll open the valves to relieve the pressure as well. You're still going to get some water spillage, but it's manageable with some towels or that sort of thing. Now, the only other tool I'm going to need for this aspect of it is going to be an adjustable wrench. This particular type of beauty cover just slides off. It uses a friction gasket to hold it in place, so it just slides off with a small O-ring. There are other models that use a small hex key in the bottom, or that might use a standard size screwdriver key as well. They can be a little tricky, but you can get them off. You'll need to get them off for sure, so you can't do it without removing them. It's got 2 flat spots on the end of this cap, so I'm just going to throw the adjustable wrench on it and get that loose. Sometimes they can be rather stiff, so be patient. Sometimes a couple of knocks on it will help loosen it up, but you probably want to knock it back where not only will it be closer to the threads, but it'll be in a place where the beauty ring will cover it in case you mar the finish. And once I've got this loose and off, you can see that this piece of plastic is really just an extension that allows the handle to reach back to the cartridge and spin the cartridge. At this point, if you've ever changed one in a sink, either a kitchen or a bathroom sink, you'll notice a similarity. This is usually the part you see in those sort of settings. So, I'm just going to work the cartridge out. You can see it's got a small O-ring there. This is the cartridge. The water comes in and is allowed to exit when it's turned. These are very inexpensive, and since you've gone through the trouble of taking it apart, even if all you needed to change was the spring and seal on the inside, go ahead and put a new cartridge in it. Now on the inside, there's a spring and seal. I'm just going to use a hex key that I know is the right size to fit inside them. It's small enough to fit inside them. Pull them loose. They look like that. Now you might be asking yourself, is that the same sort of setup that I've seen on kitchen and bath faucets and other sort of arrangements? Why, yes it is. They're super cheap, easy to replace, and they are the most common problem when you've got a drip. Either the spring is not pushing with enough force anymore, or the seal has gotten too hard to where it's not really doing a good job of sealing. Sometimes you pull those seals out and they'll leave a black residue all over your fingers, which can be a challenge to wash off. And that's a breakdown in the material they were made of. A new spring and seal will take care of that problem. I'm going to look inside there and make sure there's no debris. And once I'm satisfied that it's clear, I'm going to reinsert it on the hex key, put it in the hole to allow it to line up where the spring and seat are going to go. And this is the most frustrating part of the whole job, so be patient. Trying to get that rubber seal reseated. There it is. And it should sit in that hole, but it wants to come out, so the cartridge is actually going to push back on it. So I've got a new cartridge. I double check the O-ring. If it doesn't have any grease on it already, I might put a little plumber's grease, or at the very least get it wet to make it easier to reinsert so it'll slide in the body. I'm clear of debris. I've got a new spring and seat in. I'm going to align that notch with the notch in the valve body right there. Just going to push this into place, like so. Now, you notice I've aligned the new cartridge the same way the old one was. It had this stopper over here on the left, so that's where I'm going to put it. Now I've got my cap and my extension piece. The extension piece slides right on, just like it did before. You'll have to find its alignment. There it is. So it was in the off position. I'm going to push this cap on, and while pushing this in a little bit, I'm going to patiently look for the threads, make sure I'm not cross-threaded, get a couple of threads onto it. Looks like we should be good. And then I'm going to give it a last tightening up with the wrench. Now when I feel it's pretty tight, at this point, I might use the handle to make sure it's off. It might be a little too tough to do by hand. And once I'm sure it's turned off, I'm going to go back to the street or back to my water heater and turn it off so I'm sure it's off. I'm going to reset the water for the house, get it turned back on. I'm going to maybe get some water flowing here just to make sure we've got some air out of the system. Then I'm going to use the handle to turn it back on. Now, I'm clear of the tub spout, so I'm not getting hosed off, but I'm looking for a leak in at the base here, and I'm also looking for a leak right here. And if with water flowing through it, I've got no leaks there, then it was a really successful installation. So I'm going to turn that back off. I'm going to look at the beauty ring. It's actually got the manufacturer's name up on there, so I'm going to make sure that's facing up. Slide it back into position. This particular kind doesn't have a set screw, so that's really kind of the extent of it. Put my handle on. There we go. It's like that sound effect, that rant. It's nice. I do that myself. Practice that one a lot. Yeah. Get the screw put in. Now, if you over tighten this screw, you'll crack your handle. And I am not willing to admit how I know that. Okay. Snap your cover back in place. You are good to go. That's being a turkey. That's what you expect from one that doesn't have a set screw though, huh? Okay, we get that checked off the list. Now I can go do something different because the list is never ending. I know you probably feel like that, but the truth is to get something like this checked off, it doesn't take a lot of tools. It doesn't take a ton of time even. Just be patient. Don't be in a hurry. You can do this. I know you can.